Saturday mornings have always been quiet for me. I wake up early, make a pot of coffee, and take my time with small jobs around the place. That morning, I was changing the oil on my pickup. Nothing special. Same routine I'd followed for decades. I slid under the truck, loosened the drain plug, and waited for the oil to run warm across the pan. That's when my knuckles brushed against something that didn't belong there. I stopped moving, ran my hand back along the frame, felt it again. Smooth, solid, cold metal where there shouldn't have been any. I reached for the flashlight and angled it upward. The beam caught a small black box, magnetized to the frame rail. No dirt on it, no rust. A tiny red light blinked once, slow and steady. I didn't say anything. I just lay there for a moment, listening to the faint tick of cooling metal and the sound of my own breathing. The thing was still warm, not warm from the engine. The truck hadn't been driven since the day before. It was warm in a different way, recent, intentional. I finished draining the oil, wiped my hands, and rolled out from under the truck. I didn't remove the device right away. I stood there, leaning on the workbench, coffee cooling beside me, looking at the underside of my own vehicle like it had quietly betrayed me. I was 68 years old, widowed, lived alone on a small property outside Helena. I went to town twice a week, church on Sundays, feed store on Thursdays. I didn't have secrets, I didn't have enemies, and yet something had been attached to my truck by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I took pictures, every angle, the serial number, the mounting position. Then I removed it carefully and sealed it in a plastic bag. I wiped the magnet clean without thinking. Old habits from a life spent fixing things for a living. Inside, I sat at the kitchen table and turned the bag over slowly. It wasn't a cheap gadget. It was professional grade, the kind you don't buy on a whim. I made a short list in my head. Only 3 people had been in my garage that week. My neighbor Earl, who still used a flip phone and needed help setting his microwave clock. A delivery driver who'd never met me before. And my son, Mark, who'd stopped by midweek and spent a little too long checking the tires. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't call, I didn't confront. I put the device in my desk drawer, closed it, and left the truck right where it was. If someone was watching me, I decided to stop moving. That afternoon, I sat on the porch with my coffee and listened to the wind in the cottonwoods. No phone calls, no questions, just quiet. But that night, before bed, I noticed something else. My laptop fan was running even though I hadn't opened a single program. I closed the lid slowly, turned off the light, and stood there in the dark for a long time. Then I waited. Sunday came and went the way most Sundays do for me. Same slow pace, same small chores. I fed my 2 horses, checked the water troughs, and walked the fence line with a pair of work gloves in my back pocket. The air had that late fall bite to it. Dry leaves scraping across hard ground. The kind of morning that makes you breathe a little deeper without thinking. The truck stayed in the garage. The tracker stayed in my desk drawer. I didn't do it as a stunt. I did it because I needed information. If someone expected to see my truck moving on a map somewhere, I wanted to see what happened when it didn't. By Monday afternoon, I still hadn't driven anywhere. I fixed a loose hinge on the back gate, organized the tool shelf in the barn, made a pot of chili that would last me a few days. Nothing urgent, nothing dramatic. At about 2 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Mark. That alone was unusual. Mark and I weren't estranged, but we weren't the kind of father and son who checked in daily. He called when he needed something, or when his wife reminded him to, usually once a month, sometimes less. I answered on the second ring. Hey. Hey, Dad. His voice was light, casual, too casual, like he'd practiced the tone on the drive over. Just checking in. How you doing? I'm fine. A short pause. Then, you been out much? It wasn't what he asked. It was how he asked it, like he didn't care about the answer, only whether I'd say the right thing. Not really, I said. Just been around here. Another pause. Truck running okay? There it was. Not, how's the place? Not, how are you sleeping? Not, need anything? Straight to the truck. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the closed desk drawer across the room. Truck's fine. He exhaled softly, like that was what he wanted to hear. Good, good. Just, you know, want to make sure you're not stuck anywhere. I'm not stuck, I said. I've got food, I've got heat, I've got legs that still work. Right, yeah. His words came out quick. Okay, well, I'll let you go. He hung up too fast. No goodbye. No normal ending. I sat there for a full minute, phone still in my hand. On Tuesday morning, he called again. This time, his voice wasn't casual, it was tight at the edges. Dad, you home? I'm home, I said. You sure? I didn't answer right away. I just listened to him breathing on the line. Then I said, Mark, what's going on? Nothing. A small, strained laugh. Nothing, I was thinking about coming by this weekend. That's fine. Another pause. You haven't taken the truck in anywhere, right? There was no good way to respond to that without making it obvious I'd noticed his obsession, so I gave him something neutral. No, I said. Haven't needed to. His exhale sounded like relief. Okay. Good. After he hung up, I opened the desk drawer and pulled the plastic bag out again. The little red light on the device still blinked, steady as a heartbeat. And that's when something else came back to me. 6 months earlier, Mark had insisted on upgrading my home Wi-Fi. Said my router was outdated. He brought his own equipment. Told me not to worry about it. Spent nearly an hour alone in my office setting things up. A couple months after that, he fixed my laptop because it was running slow. Same routine, same calm confidence. Same time alone with my computer while I made coffee in the kitchen. I'd thought he was being helpful. I'd even been grateful. Now, standing there in my office with that tracker in my hand, the old memory felt different. Not warm, not kind, more like preparation. That night, I didn't turn my laptop on. I didn't even open it. I just sat in the chair and looked at it for a long time, listening to the faint hum it sometimes made even when it was asleep. Then I made myself a simple rule. If someone wanted to watch me, I wasn't going to give them a show. I turned off the office light, shut the door, and went to bed. But at around 1 in the morning, I woke up for no clear reason. The house was still. No wind, no coyotes, no rattling pipes, just silence. And from down the hall, I could hear it again. A soft whirring sound. My laptop fan. I got out of bed slowly, walked barefoot to the office, and stopped in the doorway. The laptop lid was closed. The fan was still running. I stood there a moment, then stepped back and closed the door without touching anything. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat at the table in the dark. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't call Mark. I just stared at the black window over the sink and let one thought settle in my chest, calm and heavy. If he wasn't only tracking the truck, then he was watching from inside the house. Then I waited. By Wednesday morning, I stopped guessing and started verifying. I waited until the house was fully quiet. No calls, no texts, no unexpected noise. Then I opened the office door and sat down at the desk like I'd done 1,000 times before. Same chair, same angle of light through the window. I didn't rush. I powered the laptop on and let it settle. Years ago, back when I was still working, I learned that machines don't lie. They log, they record, they leave trails. You just have to know where to look. I opened the task manager first. Nothing fancy, just the basics. Most of what I saw was familiar. Background services, system processes. Then one name caught my eye. It didn't belong, but it didn't look sloppy either. A remote access service, not a virus, not malware in the obvious sense. Something clean, installed properly, running quietly in the background. I didn't click it. I didn't search it from that computer. Instead, I shut the laptop down again and picked up my phone. I searched from there, kept my movements invisible. What I read confirmed what I already suspected. Remote desktop software, full access, screen viewing, file access, control from anywhere with the right credentials. I checked the install date, 6 months earlier, the same day Mark upgraded my Wi-Fi. I sat there with the phone face down on the desk and breathed slowly until my hands stopped tightening. That was the moment things shifted for me. Up until then, I'd still been thinking like a father, confused, hesitant. wanting there to be an innocent explanation if I waited long enough. After that, I thought in steps. Step 1. Do nothing that alerts him. Uninstalling the software would be obvious. Changing passwords would raise alarms. Panic makes people careless. I didn't want him careless yet. Step 2. Verify the scope. I checked access logs. Quietly, slowly, enough to know without digging so deep it looked like resistance. Bank statements, legal documents, property files, all accessed remotely. All at times, I wasn't home. I closed the laptop carefully and left it exactly as it was. Same position, same power light, same lid angle. That computer was no longer mine. It was evidence. I needed a second set of eyes, someone neutral, someone whose house hadn't been touched by my son's helpful hands. I walked next door just after dusk and knocked on Earl's door. He opened it wearing slippers and an old flannel shirt, looking half asleep. "Everything okay?" he asked. "My computer's acting strange," I said. "Mind if I use yours for a few minutes?" He didn't ask questions, just stepped aside. On his old desktop, I searched more carefully. Federal statutes, state laws, remote surveillance without consent, financial access, identity misuse. What I found wasn't ambiguous. What had been done to me wasn't just invasive. It was criminal. Before I left, I pulled up the photos I'd taken of the tracker under my truck and searched the model number. That was when my stomach finally tightened for real. The device wasn't just a GPS tracker. It had additional functions listed quietly in the specifications: engine interruption, remote disable, integration with vehicle control systems. In plain terms, it could shut a vehicle down while it was moving. I closed the browser and thanked Earl. Walked home under a sky that felt a little wider than it had the day before. Back in my kitchen, I made tea and sat down with a notebook. I didn't write emotions. I wrote facts, dates, access times, devices, patterns, 6 months of preparation, 2 weeks of legal interference, 1 recent installation under my truck. This wasn't impulsive. It wasn't clumsy. It was deliberate. And deliberate plans usually serve a purpose. Around 9 that night, my phone rang again. Mark. I watched it vibrate on the table until it stopped. Then I turned the phone face down. Silence, I decided, wasn't avoidance anymore. It was leverage. And for the first time since I'd found that device under my truck, I felt steady. Not angry, not afraid, just clear. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and went to bed knowing one thing for certain. I wasn't being helped. I was being managed. And whatever Mark thought he was building around me, I was now standing outside of it, looking in. Then I waited. By Thursday morning, I stopped thinking like a father entirely. I thought like someone protecting an asset. Not the house, not the land, myself. I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open and drew a clean line down the page. On the left, what I knew. On the right, what I needed, confirmed. No emotion, no speculation, just sequence. Step 1 was already done. I had verified surveillance, both physical and digital. Step 2 was pressure, not confrontation. Pressure reveals behavior. Behavior reveals intent. If Mark was watching my movements, I needed to give him something that broke the pattern without alerting him directly. I picked up the tracker from the desk drawer and turned it over in my hands. The casing was clean, sealed, still blinking. Someone, somewhere, was expecting it to report my location, so I decided to let it travel. I called an old acquaintance named Calvin. We'd worked together years back on equipment installs. He drove long haul now, didn't ask questions he didn't need answered. "Are you heading north this week?" I asked. "Canada run," he said. "Why?" "I need something delivered," I said. "No return address, no delays." He paused, then said, "Drop it off." We met just outside town near a fuel stop. I handed him a small box. Nothing marked, nothing traceable. I told him where it needed to end up. He nodded once and slid it behind the seat. When his truck pulled away, I didn't feel relief. I felt focus. Back home, I left everything else untouched. The laptop stayed where it was. The truck stayed in the garage. I went about my day like nothing had changed. At 7 that evening, my phone rang. "Mark," I answered this time. "Hey, Dad," he said too quickly. Everything okay? Fine, I said. Why? A pause, short, sharp. Just checking. You've checked a lot this week, I said. He laughed, but it came out thin. You know me. I didn't respond. After we hung up, I set the phone down and waited. 2 hours later, it rang again. Dad, Mark said, no greeting this time. Where are you? At home, I said. Are you sure? That question told me everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse him. I just said, Mark, it's late. Call me tomorrow. I hung up and turned the phone off. At 9 the next morning, Calvin texted me one line. Cross the border. Package delivered. I didn't reply. At 9:42 a.m., my phone powered back on and immediately lit up with missed calls. 4, then 5, then a text. Dad, please answer. I waited. When I finally picked up, Mark's voice was strained. Where's the truck? In the garage, I said. That's not possible, he said without thinking. Silence stretched between us. I spoke first. Mark, if you have something to say it. Another voice came through the line then, his wife's, tight, angry. Just tell us where you are. That was enough. I'll be home, I said. You can come by tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. What about? Mark started. Tomorrow, I repeated, and ended the call. After that, I moved carefully, not hurried, not panicked. I unplugged nothing, deleted nothing. I wrote down call times, message counts, changes in behavior. Everything lined up exactly the way it should when someone loses control of a system they thought was sealed. Late that night, I sat in the dark kitchen with a glass of water and made one final list. What I needed him to say, what I needed recorded, who needed to hear it. I placed my phone on the table, face down. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. Inside, the house stayed quiet. Tomorrow would be calm, controlled, respectable. And whatever Mark had been planning would end where all bad plans do. In daylight. Mark arrived a few minutes early. I saw his truck on the gravel through the front window and didn't move right away. I finished rinsing my coffee cup, set it in the rack, and wiped my hands on a towel. No rushing, no staging. When I opened the door, he was standing a little too straight, like someone bracing for impact. His wife, Lauren, stood half a step behind him. I hadn't invited her, but I didn't comment on it. Come in, I said. They sat on the couch. I took the chair across from them. Same chair I'd used for years when we talked about ordinary things. Weather, work, repairs. Nothing had been rearranged. Mark kept rubbing his palms together. Lauren crossed her arms and watched me like I was a problem to be solved. I let the silence do its work. Finally, Mark spoke. You said you found something. I did, I said, under the truck. He swallowed. Didn't ask what. Didn't pretend confusion. I reached into the desk drawer beside me and placed the empty plastic bag on the table between us. No device inside, just the bag. Lauren leaned forward. What is that supposed to mean? It means I know, I said, and I need you to listen carefully. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I stated facts. I know there was a device attached to my truck. I know when it was installed. I know what it's capable of. I know my computer has remote access software installed. I know when that happened too. Mark's face drained of color. Lauren stood up. This is ridiculous. Sit down, I said calmly, or I'll call the sheriff and we'll do this with witnesses. She sat. I turned back to Mark. Did you put the device on my truck? He hesitated, long enough. Yes, he said. I nodded once. Did you access my computer remotely? Another pause. Yes. Did you attempt to file legal documents using my name? Lauren started talking fast. You don't understand. Not you, I said without looking at her. Mark's voice cracked. Yes. I took out my notebook and checked off 3 boxes. Why? I asked. Not angry, not loud. Mark put his face in his hands. We needed time, he said. Just time. Lauren shot him a look. Stop talking. I leaned back. Time for what? Mark looked up at me, eyes red. Debt, a lot of it. We thought we could fix it. We thought if we controlled things for a while. You thought, I said. That managing me was easier than asking. He nodded. Lauren stood again. We're done here. I picked up my phone and set it on the table. Screen facing them, recording indicator visible. No, I said. We're finished when the truth is complete. That's when Lauren spoke too fast. It was just tracking. I looked at her. The device can disable a vehicle while it's moving. Silence. Mark stared at her. You said it couldn't. She didn't answer. I stood and walked to the kitchen doorway. You can come out now. Two figures stepped forward from the back room, quiet, professional, badges held at waist level. Mark froze. Lauren backed toward the door. I sat back down. This conversation is over. They were escorted out without shouting, without drama, just the sound of cuffs and quiet instructions. When the door closed, the house felt larger. I turned the phone recording off, placed it face down, and sat there alone for a long moment. Outside, their truck pulled away. Inside, everything was still. And for the first time in weeks, nothing was watching me anymore. By the time the house went quiet again, it was just after 10. I stayed seated for a while, hands resting on my knees, listening to the familiar sounds return, the refrigerator cycling on, the soft tick from the wall clock, ordinary things reclaiming the space. The agents didn't rush me. They took statements the way experienced people do, slow, methodical, respectful. Dates, devices, timelines. I handed over the notebook, the photos, the access logs. Nothing emotional, just paper and proof. One of them nodded as he flipped through the pages. This is thorough. It needed to be, I said. They told me what would happen next. Charges, financial investigation, asset review. The property would be protected. The fraudulent filings were already flagged. The device from my truck would be traced back through purchase records tied to a larger case. None of it felt dramatic. It felt procedural, like watching a system finally work the way it was supposed to. After they left, I walked through the house once, turning off lights. I unplugged the old laptop and set it in a box. It would go with the rest of the evidence. I didn't feel anger doing it, just closure. That afternoon, I drove the truck for the first time in days. Straight to a mechanic I trusted. He confirmed what the photos had already shown. The device was capable of more than tracking. It was removed and sealed properly, documented, handed off. By evening, a lawyer called to confirm the next steps. Temporary restrictions, protective measures. The property placed beyond reach while everything sorted itself out. I made soup, simple, sat at the table and ate it slowly. Over the next few weeks, the facts lined up the way facts do when there's nowhere left to hide. Numbers, transfers, signatures that almost matched mine but didn't quite. A trail that told the same story no matter where you started reading it. There was a hearing, then another. Sentencing came later. I attended once. I didn't stay long. When I got home that day, I swept the porch. The motion was steady, familiar. I put the broom away and sat down with a glass of water, looking out at the yard as the light shifted. What surprised me most wasn't the outcome. It was the quiet afterward. No more unexplained calls. No more background noise from machines. No more feeling like I was being guided somewhere I hadn't agreed to go. Life didn't reset. It stabilized, and that was enough. I went to bed that night without locking my phone in a drawer, without checking under the truck, without listening for a fan that shouldn't be running. Just sleep. Clean, ordinary sleep. 6 months later, spring settled in the way it always does here, quietly and without asking permission. I spent most mornings on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching the frost lift off the grass. I adopted a young dog from a local rescue, named him Milo. He followed me everywhere, unsure of the world but willing to trust it again. We learned together. The house felt like mine again, not guarded, not managed, just lived in. The legal work finished in stages. The property was placed in a trust that couldn't be touched without my consent. Accounts were secured, devices replaced, doors closed where they needed to be closed. I didn't celebrate any of it. I just put things back where they belonged. I received letters. Some I opened, some I didn't. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't obligated to resolve anything either. Boundaries are a kind of peace if you let them be. Once a week, I volunteered at a local senior center. Nothing official, just conversations. I listened more than I talked. Every now and then, someone would mention a son who helped a little too much, or a daughter who needed signatures in a hurry. I never interrupted. I just shared what to look for, calmly, when it felt right. One afternoon, a man about my age asked if he could walk me to my truck. As we stood there, he hesitated, then quietly said he'd found something strange under his car the week before, didn't know who to tell, didn't want to overreact. I gave him my number, not because I had answers, but because no one should have to face that kind of confusion alone. That night, I washed the dishes, dried them, and set them back in the cabinet. Milo slept at my feet. The house was still, safe, ordinary. That's what I fought for. Not revenge, not punishment. Just the right to live my life without being watched. If this story stayed with you, you're welcome here. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe if you'd like to hear more true stories like this one. Let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I read those, and I appreciate them. 2 more stories will appear next. They're different, but they carry the same quiet truth. Take care of yourself, and trust what your instincts notice.